I'm going to wet coat the belly and under the bottom of the tail. And I'm doing this with my white, warm white, snow white, it's not going to matter, whichever you've used. Okay, so I'm going to now double load my brush. I'm using my number 4. And I'm going to put the gray up. This is sand gray and warm white. And I'm just going to use the brush up on the chisel. I'll reload as I need. And we're just going to chisel little feathery marks. It's going to leave little tiny feather strokes in the gray and the white. When we get to the tail, I want to try to keep the gray more towards the blue section. Okay. I'm going to take my 0 round I'm going to wet coat the little section under the beak and eye. I will pick up a little of the gray sky on the dirty brush and just streak a few little streaks in. So we want it to be white and gray. If you get in more than you wanted to, we can pull black markings back in later when we do our accents on our black. While I have this on here, I'm going to take and just bring a little more gray along the back part of the tail. I'll streak a little more of the white along the front. Just fade it off up into here, whatever's on my brush. Little stroke marks throughout. Smudge those in. I'm just trying to use up the paint on my brush. If I choke out too much gray, I'll go back and forth in there. Afterwards, once they dry, you get more of a color in there, and it's hard to tell what you might like, so you may go back in and add in some more white or gray depending on what you have. I'm going to put a base coat of sapphire blue on my head. I'm using my number 4 flat. I'm going to double load my brush with sapphire and winter blue, and the winter blue I'm going to chisel, put the winter blue towards the beak, and I'm just going to chisel back and forth and streak upwards with the sapphire outwards. So it's going to streak its way up to the end. I'll wipe my brush. I'll put a bit of sapphire, and on the other edge, it's going to be the crisp blue. And with that bright crisp blue to the outside edge, I'll just loosely chisel my way back down. Now, every time I do this, I end up with a different amount of the crisp blue. If I want to put a little bit more of the lighter blue coming this way, I just pick up a bit more of that winter blue and just chisel my way backwards till you get your desired look of what you'd like on there. That crisp blue is one of my favorites. Now, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to break up his body, his back, pardon me. So I'm going to come down to my markings here. And I'm just putting on a quick coat of the sapphire. I can see where I see through here. So now I'm going to dirty brush sapphire. I'm picking up some of my winter blue, and I'm going to come along the back and just chisel with the winter blue down. Just some little working my way back inwards. I wouldn't mind a little more winter blue, so I'm going to come back here again. I'm not pressing hard. Okay, I've got my brush flattened to a chisel, and I'm just chiseling little feathery marks, working my way inward and upward. Now, it's on this frosted background, a lot of times it's easy to pull your paint off if you work too much in an area. So I'm going to pick up on the sapphire blue part of my brush. I'm going to pick up my crisp blue again, and I want to come in here at the top of the wing. And I just want to feather that in. Into that sapphire and winter blue. And I kind of tend to work it in a bit more than I wanted to, so I'm going to come back over here with a little more of that winter blue and feather in more little light feathery marks. All right, now we are going to be coming in here with some on top overlaying feathers. Okay, so we will, what I want to do right now is I'm going to skip this section and I'm going to come down and I'm going to put the base underneath for our tail. So again, it's going to be, this is just giving me, without having to go back and keep transferring on lines. That's what we're getting here. So I'm coming under the tail. And I'm doing that tail section. I'm going to pick up a little bit of winter blue and sapphire on the brush. With the winter blue up, I went along the top of that tail, or the bottom of the tail, and now the top of the tail. I still have, I'm just going to flatten that down again. I still have the winter blue out, or up if we'll call it. Okay, so there are the markings for my tail. So I've got the 2 feathers marked onto there. I'm going to clean my brush because after a while it just gets to the point where it's a bit much. All right, so we now have these little markings, and I really left those there so you'd be able to find where we're going. By that, I mean I'm going to come in here and I'm going to base in this little tail bit, but you're going to see where my tail feathers end and where the top part of his wing ends. Okay, so we'll see where we're putting that group of feathers. So I'm going to come in here now, and I'm just going to base that in. I'm going to double load back with my sapphire and my winter blue. And just kind of feathery marks with those. And what I want to do here is pick up my blue crisp, and I'm going to come along and chisel in a feather. So do you see that nice blue crisp feather that's coming along here? I'm going to come in here at the top of this section, or the underneath the bottom of the other section, and I'm going to put a little blue crisp feather in there. And move down and put 2 more. Okay. Now, what I'm really doing is laying in the area where we're going to put, and I'm going to clean my brush out, where we're going to put in our little white feathers. So I'm going to side load my little number 4. I've cleaned my brush out, and I'm going to wiggle. So you see that little wiggle stroke? It's a side load brush. I'm putting these and another little one along the top of that blue crisp long feather. And then I've got a fair size one just below this blue crisp. We're going to come in with black after. So now I'm moving up into the other section. I'm going to side load a fresh load there. So I'm going to come in with 1, 2, well, now I've moved those over a bit, so I'm going to actually come in like so. So what you're going to find with this is it's not going to matter if they are exactly right at your edge, if they're exactly in the same spot. Now, do you see how the markings are coming in here without us having to go and transfer on a whole pile of lines and make everything end up in exact spots? So I'm going to take my, you can take your liner, your zero round, whichever you'd like. And I've made a mess on my palette here. but I'm going to take some black. We're taking our lamp black. And so let's go above these ones. They're the easiest ones to find right now. And I'm just going to wiggle along some little black markings. For feathers. I will never have them exactly. I want these to be a little deeper. There we go. And this one's coming right off the edge. And then we've got that crisp, blue crisp. Let's put something right along the top of that. And then right in here, I'm going to add some. We're just looking to have random feathery marks. I'm going to come down here underneath this blue crisp with my liner and pull up a dark feather. So those are our dark, strong, we'll call those our strong lines or feathery marks. If you feel you have to follow the lines, you can transfer them on with, I would transfer all of the markings on with white transfer. That way we are not having an issue with our markings showing through in dark, because when you're doing your wiggling with the white, that dark would show through on you. So I'm going to side load my little either number 2, side load a number 2 or 1/8, and I'm just gonna kind of see black up, water down, just add that little sort of wiggle for our feathers. I'm now going to take and I'm going to come from the bottom of my tail with my black down. I'm just going to reload again. I'm going to reload again. You don't want to have too much on the brush when you're doing a feather. My little side load there. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to come from the bottom, wiggle, just move up. These do not have to be counted. Okay, you're just wiggling in feathers. Move your way up. And we're not asking them to be lined right up with the guy beside them. They're two different feathers, correct? Like, so we want them to be, if they're beside each other, they're beside each other. But if they're in different spots, yay, it doesn't really matter. So now I've wiggled in these feathers. I'm going to clean my brush, side load into a little tiny bit, and this is your number 2. So you're getting just a little bit of white, and I'll just come in and add it on a few of these feathers. We don't want it everywhere. All right, so we don't want that everywhere. I'm going to check and see how my gray looks. I think I could have a little more gray close to the blue. White, come in there. So I just chisel that in. That's not too bad. I think I'd like a little bit of dark under there. Yeah, that's better. My blue was a bit too crisp there. Too crisp there. Now, I'm going to take the black and I'm going to pick up a very tiny little bit. We're talking a little bit. I've double loaded my brush with lamp black and just a little of the gray sky. I don't want to see distinct gray lines in here, but I want this to be more of a highlight on the black. And I'm going to double load that gray and black. We can see a little more of the gray would be fine on our beak. So what I want to do is chisel that down the middle of the beak and streak it on the top. So the top of our beak is going to have, I'm not able to break into my gray, it's already dried. There we go. We want to have some chisel highlight marks, more so on the top of this beak. And down the middle is the strongest one, like so. And put a couple more highlights in there. And then we're going to take our liner. And with our liner, we want to clean up our eye. So our eye needs to be rounded out. And if I want to bring more little marks down in here, that works. And the same thing here, up onto the head. With my liner, just kind of, we want to have these black fine marks coming up here, the back of his head a bit more. And bring them just loosely there. And what might come this way, do you see that I'm following the shape, right, of the head there? And we'll have a few little black marks coming there. Few coming right here. That works out nicely. And I'm going to take and brush mix a little of the gray sky and a little black. Oh, I got water running down my liner there. And we're going to put a little, make sure it's not too bright or too big, line in there. So when I say it's not too big, I mean fat. So see how I have it a little fat? I'll just kind of come back. See, with the black, I can push that back and make my line as thin as I'd like it to be. It works out really, really nice. I always tend to do a push back on my eye. And then we want a little highlight dot there. So that's pretty good. I'm good with that. And we can add a little, I'll just kind of brush mix a little winter blue and just kind of add a few little lines into these so that we're breaking these up with a little A little bit of the blue markings in them. That looks not too shabby. And we can do the same thing. I can come back in and add, let's get a bit more of the winter blue. And just to see how I'll go back in, and I'm going to feather in. Now you might end up with lots of little highlighty marks in here so far and not need to bring in any more. But it's always good to kind of come back with a little bit more. Do you see how that just adds to it? It's giving me a little more highlight. I've gone in and I have put a base coat, just a quick base coat of raw umber. We only want an undertone under there. I've got raw umber, and I'm going to pick up some raw umber and some plantation pine on my 1/4 inch or number 6 flat. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to chisel in some branches. Coming along my raw umber. Don't press hard. Keep going back and picking up paint, flattening your brush to the chisel. That's what's important. We're going to have some snow drifts on these little needles. They're a little transparent at this point, but I'm going to come back as they dry. So I'm going to come now to the back of my bird. Okay, so we've got one coat on our needles, and then I just come back as they're dried and bring in another coat, just reloading in my little puddle of paint. There. So we just come through like so. I'll add a couple more in the back. That's dried up enough. When I do transfer any lines on for a pattern, if I'm doing that, I don't want to have too many because it's never easy to get them on exactly where you want them to be. You can't follow lines when you're doing needles. I'm going to bring a few up onto the bird as well. Okay. There we go. I'm going to add the snow next. So I'm going to pick up using my 0 round. I'm going to come in here and apply my snow on top of the bow. Now, this again is not meant to be a transferred on line by any means. Just a little bit of snow And then I've got a little in the back. And that's not too shabby. I may come back after and just kind of pop that up a bit. Make it a little wider, depends on how much I end up seeing through. But basically, that's it. So if you feel that, and I look at him and I think, okay, he could take a little tiny bit. So I would just pick up a little bit more of my gray. I think that I could use a little more gray along here. Just next to the body. There. That's better. All right. So basically, that's our ornament. You definitely, I'm going to go back with here, and it's kind of nice to either speckle a little bit of snow in the background or put a few little snowflakes stencil-wise or whatever on there. Be pretty. So your choice, and you can paint these on anything you'd like. All right. I hope you enjoyed painting these, and I hope we get to paint together again. So this is Wendy signing off from the Blue Jay.